Hi everyone, and welcome to the last video lecture of this module, Other Types of Research Publications. In the previous lecture videos, we've explored what research proposals and peer-reviewed journal articles are designed to do and how they're formatted. These are not the only ways you can access research information, though. An important part of the research process is the dissemination of results, and scientists use a variety of means to get their research information in front of larger audiences. Here's a list of some of the other ways that research can be published. I want to briefly highlight a few features of each of these ways over the next few slides. Some of the common sources that students see research through is books, dissertations, and theses. When I'm talking about research books, I'm not talking about the newest fiction craze. There are multiple academic publishers in the world that publish research-oriented books. These are not textbooks, but they offer a more in-depth discussion of a single topic or research study. Academic books are often written for a layperson, as opposed to the academic community audience that peer-reviewed journals are designed to address. An academic book will have an editor that will address organization and structure, and many academic publishers will also require peer-reviewed processes that involve experts in the discipline. So while these are not peer-reviewed journal articles, they often go through a similar rigorous process of publication. Dissertations and theses are related to these, as these documents are often made into either a peer-reviewed article or an academic book. A thesis is a large research project that's required to graduate with a master's degree. Dissertations are even longer, more complex projects that are required to complete a doctoral degree. Both are reviewed and accepted by a committee of subject matter experts within the university, and they're also reviewed in some way by the university that's issuing the degree. Dissertations and theses are typically not preferred publications for formal research articles because they lack the same rigor necessary for a peer-reviewed publication. It all depends on how much the committee wants to look over, so that's something to be aware of. However, as I said, dissertations and theses are also often turned into a peer-reviewed journal article. So sometimes you can do a search for the author and the title, and you might be able to find an article in a peer-reviewed journal that matches the topic. Conference proceedings typically look like a peer-reviewed journal, but they don't have the same review process. These are write-ups of presentations that were presented at an academic conference and then published by the conference organizers. Typically, academic conferences have to accept research proposals for a presentation, usually through the submission of an abstract or project outline. So conference proceedings are refereed in terms of their overall content, but they're not necessarily peer-reviewed in entirety. Additionally, conference proceedings are often more preliminary, with the full results being published in a peer-reviewed journal at a later date. So this is something to be aware of if you find a source from a conference proceedings journal. Magazines and newsletters are another form of publication where you can find research findings. The advantage of these formats is that these are typically written for the layperson or for the people working within the relevant discipline, so they can be more easily understood to a non-researcher. However, magazines and newsletters do not go through the same multi-step peer-reviewed process that peer-reviewed journals articles go through. So, while they may look like a journal, the content will most likely have only been reviewed by an editor who may or may not have expertise in that particular discipline. The last two publication formats I want to discuss are reports and white papers. Both are common methods of research dissemination, and you can find a lot of reliable reports and white papers published from government agencies like the Bureau of Justice Statistics, the National Institute of Justice, the Federal Bureau of Investigations, and more. Like peer-reviewed journal articles, reports will include objective data and findings that are related to a particular topic. They should also describe the process of data collection and analysis, and they may provide appendices of the data itself for the reader. The main difference between a report and a peer-reviewed journal article is the peer review process. Reports are often published by an agency or a company, and they're not subject to the same process of blind peer review that a peer-reviewed journal article is. This is not necessarily a problem when you're using a legitimate agency, like the NIJ or the FBI, but you can also find reports from nonprofit organizations, for-profit businesses, and companies. That means you have to be cautious when analyzing a report to ensure that you've looked into the author and you're aware of any biases that may be present in terms of their research study. White papers are very similar to reports, except they are typically shorter and they will also contain recommendations to help relevant stakeholders make a decision or solve a research problem. The goal of a research report is to communicate findings. The goal of a white paper is to use those research findings to persuade the reader to take an action or to select a specific outcome. All right, well, that concludes this lecture video. Nice and brief, right? Thanks for watching, everyone.